This is the download from Sounds Profitable, the most important news from this week and why it matters to people in the business of podcasting. I'm Gavin Gaddis. The download recap is brought to you by Podscribe. You can find out more at podscribe.com. This week I've got for you the smart TV factor, podcasts and gaming, the UK podcast advertising opportunity, and unique opportunity, a spectrum of branded content in podcasting. Let's get started. 8% of podcast consumers primarily use a smart TV for that. While it might not sound like much, that's a significant enough number to draw attention to. When filtered to just smart TV primary users, a different kind of user begins to form than one might immediately presume, given the growth of video podcasting. Tom Webster finds 39% of smart TV Prime users usually expect a podcast to be audio, but it may be video. 26% presume a podcast could be either format. A quote from Webster, quote, "This is fascinating because it suggests that smart TV podcast users aren't necessarily video absolutists. Rather, they're pragmatists who use whatever screen happens to be in front of them at the time. For many Americans, especially in certain demographics, the smart TV has become a central hub of media consumption, replacing both the traditional television and, in some cases, the computer. It's the digital equivalent of that one chair in your house where everything from mail to clothes to random Amazon packages somehow accumulates." End quote. Webster ends with 4 thoughts for podcasting to mull over on how to best play to the strengths of growing smart TV usage, including consideration of the 55-plus demographic who largely only engage with digital media with smart TVs, and optimizing podcasts for device switching, so audiences who jump from a phone to a car to TV can enjoy doing so. Next up, I've got the second in a 2-part article series about the potential podcasts hold for game marketing. This is written by MediaBody CEO Edward Fuller. A big hurdle podcasting will need to overcome to be accepted in mainstream game marketing mix is refreshing outdated presumptions marketers have, such as the premise podcast ads are purely for brand awareness. Fuller also notes podcasting needs to demonstrate we can offer competitive CPMs, cost per 1,000 impressions, as an industry, emphasizing how much data is available at every step of the advertising process. The piece ends with a succinct list of areas a veteran games marketer wishes to see podcasting grow into, including stuff like more robust tracking solutions and improved behavioral targeting. Some of the bullet points are things that genuinely do need addressing, but some of them are things the industry can deftly handle already, but needs to do a better job of communicating to the wider marketing world that we can do those things. Next up, a look at the UK podcast opportunity from AudioUK's Power of Podcasting Showcase. Sound Insights founder Ben Robbins recaps the Power of Podcasting Showcase hosted by AudioUK last week. A core theme running through the event is the open opportunity in plain sight with podcast advertising in the UK. That sure was a thumb crack that just happened. Despite continuing growth in the market, spend noticeably lags behind in comparison to listenership to advertising spend ratio in the United States. A quote from Robbins, quote, "AudioUK CEO Chloe Straw set the context, sharing UK podcast ad spend sits at approximately £83 million compared to $2.4 billion in the US, unsurprisingly. Even accounting for population differences, the UK's per capita podcast spend, $1.60, pales against America's $7. Suggesting significant untapped potential for advertisers willing to enter the space early. Notably, podcast advertising delivers an impressive 4.9 return on ad spend, outperforming the 3.7 average across other media channels." End quote. To paraphrase Robbins' conclusion, the piece highlights the benefit of UK brands getting into podcasts now, as brands that establish themselves now stand to benefit from higher engagement rates, premium audience demographics, and lower competition than in more saturated channels. As more and more news sources talk about the power of branded content in podcasting, Paul Riismandel notes the marked lack of podcasting discussion at Branded Content Days, hosted by the Native Content Institute in New York shortly after Evolutions by Podcast Movement in Chicago. A quote from Riismandel, quote, I hear all the time that measurement is a barrier to more investment in podcasts, especially deeper brand integrations. However, Signal Hill Insights has been measuring these for a decade, and the evidence shows they're effective marketing vehicles, delivering plenty of return on investment. At one end of the spectrum, we've tested integrations in existing podcasts where brands sponsor a segment, a whole bonus episode, or even a mini-series. All of these options give brands much more listen and watch time and engagement than a typical pre- or mid-roll spot, while the audience gets extra content from their favorite creators. End quote. Branded podcasts work. The question becomes how much brands escalate their branded integrations. Finally, it's time for my quick hits. These are articles that didn't quite make the cut for today's top stories, but are still worth including in your weekend reading. This week I've got for you, Deadline has coverage of Wondery signing a first-look deal with Lindsey Graham, allowing Amazon's podcast company several years of first dibs at any new podcast series created by Graham and his company Airship. Ashley Carman covered the Spotify Q1's earnings call, including a 12% increase in subscribers and operating income falling short of forecasted expectations. Inside Audio Marketing reports on new guideline data showing ad spend in the U.S. jumped 7.8% year over year this March. Headliner has a new most replayed tool that highlights sections of YouTube videos most often skipped to and replayed by viewers, allowing podcasters to repurpose their top performing video segments into shareable clips. And Fairing co-founder Matt Baer has announced on LinkedIn that the company has made LTV, lifetime value, analytics free for all Fairing customers on current plans, allowing them to connect post-purchase survey response data to their spending patterns, which can empower predictions of future purchase behavior. That was the download recap brought to you by Sounds Profitable. I know we went through today's stories fast, so be sure to check out the links to every article mentioned right in your podcast listening app or at the download section of soundsprofitable.com. Thank you for sticking with me as I brought you all the top stories you might have missed throughout this week. I'm Gavin Gaddis. Our producers are myself, Brian Barletta, and Tom Webster. Robot?
Download complete.